People can hear me now? Ah, right. Hey, sorry about the little technical difficulties there. We're just getting the audio figured out, as one does. Well, we are joined. We're your hosts, Toph and PP. It's another week of Radio Melee. I'm just gonna say everything I said so that you don't feel like you missed out on anything for all you FOMO havers out there. And yeah, it's a bright and beautiful Tuesday, as always. And we are joined by hailing from San Diego. The number, is it one ranked player in San Diego? I know you're one at least some point. Are you one right now? I don't know.
Technically number 2 right now, but we'll call it one. We'll
We'll get it back. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
we will.
number one or number two in some order. We got Khalid, Jigglypuff extraordinaire, and definitely one of the hot rising stars to have on your fantasy ballot for some of the later tournaments of the year. What's up, Khalid? And how you doing?
What's up, Toph? PP? I'm doing very well.
hung out a
Thank
little
you for
bit
that
more.
wonderful introduction. Yes, we did hang out a little bit. It was wonderful, and I'm just happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
PP, so yeah, I mean, you know, I know you're always kind of, you know, do you do a lot of like spectating of like Melee tournaments and stuff on your stream or anything like that? Like,
Yeah, I mean, normally what I like to do is I check out an event after it's done, like, because there's a lot of people that didn't see it live or something like that. So I'll watch actually the day after because I
and
find
you'll do
that,
your
that
highlights.
yeah, I'll do highlights or I'll like if maybe like there's a set like it ends up looking like a blowout, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna move past this and like you don't get the downtime. So it's kind of like nice for time, but then it also helps people that maybe want to watch without spoilers that still want to kind of enjoy watching along that didn't get a chance to. So that's been really fun, and I think there have been a lot of tournaments that have been really fun to kind of check out, and I think more and more when I've been doing the watching, actually, I've been seeing this guy that we have on the program today. We've had Mr. Khalid on here, and I don't think there's any coincidence for that. I mean, we actually tried to get you on before, it didn't end up working out, but when I saw the rank come out, I mean, there was something very very remarkable about all the names I'm looking at here on the rankings, and that is you getting 37th, which is great, but previously you were 86th. And that's a 49 spot jump, and for anyone wondering, which is absolutely phenomenal. And so I, was very impressed by that because again, regardless of character, that it's a hard game. So it's not easy to do. A lot of great players, a lot of slippies out there, right? Everyone's grinding.
Whoa, what do you mean regardless of character? Hang on, wait. Let's
some people. No, I don't have an issue with.
No, I want to hear your no. I want to hear from your point of view.
Yeah. So some people.
I'm not interested in what some people. I know what some people think. I'm just curious what you meant by that.
Oh no, I mean that was entirely a reference to some.
I think Puff is kind of hard.
No,
Puff is kind of hard. Have you ever played Puff Fox? That matchup's hard.
The matchup is not fun. The matchup is not fun. And then you got people switching to go Fox against you too. So that's that's tough. So
okay, I didn't want to.
No, that wasn't my opinion. That was entirely a reflection of the people. No, like I said, actually, regardless of character.
I've never really talked to you, in all my years that I've known you, PP. I've never really talked to you about like Jigglypuff and stuff. Well, no, and the only reason I bring this up is because I feel like all the 5 gods, except you, have very out there opinions on Puff. Armada, not a fan. Mute King, not a fan. Mango used to play the character. Thanks,
right?
Hungrybox obviously made the character,
right?
And then there's PP, and it's what does PP think?
Yeah,
aren't you curious about this, Khalid?
I'm very curious. I agree with you. I've never heard.
About the character at all.
I always like, I always am a little awkward when I get these questions because I want to highlight our guests, but at the same time, yeah, it's maybe there could be some good discussion from this. So yeah, I think I'm not a Puff hater for sure. I mean, I think there are possibilities with.
I'm not either.
No, yeah, for sure. But everyone needs to be reminded, absolutely, that neither of that you're not, and then I'm not as well. I think there may be an issue with extended planking, but I want to see people like lab it more because every time I hear about like, oh, there's this issue or that issue, I'm like, okay, well, and then like for example, Leffen said like, oh, well, I labbed it and this was worse, and I was always like, well, what did you find? Because it's hard for me to evaluate when I don't know a lot of things, and I don't play Puff as much. So
this is maybe something we could even get into with Khalid. I mean, Khalid, obviously you play the character, but you don't play. I mean, Khalid, I would say, well, my impression of you having I guess mostly played you in doubles, to be fair. But my impression of your playstyle is you're not particularly campy. Like you're pretty, you're kind of scrappy. I think,
I would agree with that too.
right?
I would agree with that for the most part. Yeah, I tend to just fight, and defense is actually probably my weakest part of play.
Oh wow.
I would say that Jigglypuff, if you play her more defense oriented, is probably the best way that the character can and should be played.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding the ledge grab limit or like rules surrounding that, it's a very deep and intricate conversation that I would love to actually get into, and we can totally discuss. I guess the first thing I would say is that um, there's definitely a bunch of rules that we have surrounding the game. Like we're not playing on score. We're not playing with like a 2-minute timer. We've decided to have this rule set that we have in place right now. For one reason or another, I would say it's probably just the most enjoyable for the players and the spectators.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the current rule set, some people would argue that some characters, specifically Jigglypuff, are able to camp an extended period of time, which basically is a non-interactive play style, sort of abuses the rule set that you would have in place just to get out a win in whatever way is possible. Do I agree with that? Um, I think the ledge grab limit is too high right now. That's the first thing I would say. It's 60 is a bit too much because there have been games that I've played on this current rule set where I will get the lead and I will grab the ledge and I will camp you and I have no remorse doing it. And I do think it's a bit abusive to an extent. I would say that it should probably be around 45, honestly. But because right now, even when the games do go to time and somebody's clearly camping, nobody
Mm-hmm.
really gets punished for it. So it's just a bit too high right now. And
Mm-hmm.
in regards to
Can I ask a quick
Jigglypuff,
question about
yeah,
that?
what's up?
Some people have said that because Puff takes so much longer to grab the ledge, there would need to be a Puff specific ledge grab limit that could maybe be 45 or something lower. Would you agree with that, or would you disagree with that?
Um, that's a really hard question to begin tackling because if we begin to put these
Yep.
Somewhat
constraints on,
arbitrary.
yeah, it just becomes so arbitrary at a point because if you're going to go down that road, you're going to admit, oh, Jigglypuff right now, it has a play style that is impossible to counter, and she would, if played this way, is possibly the best character in the game. Then you would say, is there anything wrong with that? Should Bowser be a playable character too? Like who is to say what character played in what way should or shouldn't be able to win? And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think in regards to that specific question, it taking a long time for her to grab the ledge, it's hard to put in place a blanket ledge grab limit because you have
Yeah.
characters like Yoshi who just go from the ledge really quickly and they grab the ledge like maybe 10 times in less than 30 seconds. And maybe it should be character specific, but I don't know. Is there anybody really right now doing it to an extent where like it's that damaging?
Like
And
problematic, yeah.
yeah, and also I would say like Melee is just this kind of game that you have to accept for what it is. Like there are characters that are able to camp you when they get the lead, and that's the nature of it. Like there are so many times when I'm playing against a fox and they'll go to top platform and start camping me, and I'm playing from behind and I have to get the lead back, and then I have to brainstorm and find my way in and claw my way back from the jaws of defeat. And it's like the player that's in the lead worked hard to get that lead in the first place. Should we punish them for the risks that they took
Mm-hmm.
to get that lead? Like it's not like that lead came from nowhere. And were they camping to get that lead in the first place? Probably not, because it usually takes a risk or at least some sort of decision to get some percent in the first place or an
I mean,
opening.
Puff doesn't have a projectile.
No, she does not.
So Puff had to, touch the opponent to get the lead. So
That's right. She does have disjointed hitboxes, and you could say back air's a projectile, but yeah, there's no laser. She doesn't have the turn up, nothing like that.
Mhm.
So I mean, she really does have to kind of take that first step to get the lead. But it's also kind of devastating too, because what if that first step is like it ends up being a rest, and then she has a stock lead, she could play the whole game, and that degenerate style of play, I think before we do anything, the first thing I would do if we did anything at all would be to lower the ledge grab limit and then take a look at how the games are going at that point.
I feel like, to a certain extent, while we're on the topic, and we don't have to go, we don't have to go on this topic that long. Obviously, we gotta get into our callers and stuff at some point. But yeah, while we're on the topic, I'll also mention that I do feel like people kind of tunnel vision on like camping and stuff being a problem in Melee because they're like, I think part of it is that because dude, it always wraps around the argument always wraps around. But I think it's because our timer's so long, right? Because like in most fighting games, okay, let's say like Marvel or something, it's like okay, Morrigan's problematic, right? Like Morrigan camps, throws all these fireballs and stuff, but the round timer isn't 8 minutes long, so it's like okay, if you get the lead and then you're playing defensively and they have to like work their way in, at least they don't have to work their way in theory for 8 minutes. Now, to be fair, I don't think that most Melee games really go to 8 minutes. I don't think that's that common. So maybe it's not like in practice, it's not that big of a problem. But I feel like when people talk about this, it's kind of on theoretical terms a lot of the time. So, that's the kind of argument that people kind of bring up. But anyway, yeah, no, it's true. Like to get in the situation, like it's a privilege to be in the situation where you can camp someone out because that means you are in the lead, and you had to do that at some point. So I don't know. I think it's a pretty interesting topic. But well, if people want to get into it more, I guess we can. This is something that we can definitely talk about. We have a lot of possible topics of discussion, and for people who don't know how the show goes, I should mention that. And I'll do it in my own chat right now. !Radio Melee. Of course, every single week we open up the hotline for people to call in and ask us whatever they want. We've got our Submit Topics Here channel in the Discord server that you can hop into. Just tag OHKO Oko. It's like one hit KO in Pokemon. And whatever your question is, you can hop into our voice channel and just talk to us live on air. We're actually experimenting, by the way, for the first time. This is our first episode that we're experimenting with a bit of a shakeup. We've got kind of a new format, not new format, but well, this is good news, especially I think for you Europeans out there who might be in a weird time zone, or anyone who just might be working and can't make the live broadcast. Those of you maybe who tune in on YouTube and you don't tune in to the Twitch streams every week. Well, we do this every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. But if you can't make it to the live broadcast on Twitch, you can call our brand new voicemail line. It is a actual phone voicemail line. It's real voicemail. It feels just like the 90s. I haven't used voicemail in 20 years. But if you call 213-347-5242, that's 213-347-5242, you're going to hear a lovely southern kind of sounding voice. That's of course, our senior brand manager, Luke, who longtime fans of GG Melee know. Receive a southern accent, right, Luke? It's like a southern accent, right? That's like a southern. I think it's like a southern accent.
Southern-ish, yeah.
Crazy because you live in Modesto, but we're living in Modesto.
He moved, yeah.
Modesto's south of me, so I guess that's south. But anyway, you can call in, and basically what's going to happen is, oh yeah, we should get that number on screen. Can we get that number on screen, producer? Again, it's 213-347-5240. Yeah, I know you live in. I said lived, but whatever. Anyway. I don't want to leak where you actually live, man. Then people are gonna find you. They're gonna hunt you down and dox you. Yeah,
give you content ideas. We can't have that.
We need the people scouring the streets of Modesto looking for a Luke that's no longer there. But anyway, listeners can call in to, again, it's 213-347-5242. Leave a voicemail with your question, and yeah, if you're busy during the live sessions, if you've got a good question that you leave on our voicemail line, then we're just gonna We're gonna answer your question on air, and you won't even have to be here for it. Maybe you're a little bit shy, you don't want to talk to us live on air. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, and this is something that people have been asking about a lot. So I'm really hoping that this gets used, and this creates more opportunity, more dialogue for a lot of people. I think this can be a really nice thing.
That's right. Oh, did I say it wrong? No, it's 213-347-5242. Yeah, and also just make sure you're following GG Melee on Twitter, and we'll generally try to have whoever our upcoming guest is, at least lock like the weekend beforehand, so you kind of have some context as to what kind of question you want to target to a specific guest or something like that. But of course, you can ask us whatever you want. It can be kind of open ended. I think we've got a question this week that we've got lined up, and it's pretty open ended. We're all going to get into it, but it's not particularly directed at any particular person. It's actually kind of a pretty good question. Reminds me of the sorts of questions we get for community voice. And I guess we could jump into the community voice real quick before we open up the caller line. Speaking of which.
He's going for it. Well, we can absolutely do that. And And our community voice was very beautifully posed by Juggle Guy.
Yeah.
And it was difficult for me to wrap my head around it fully. But his
Me too.
question basically was, who is your favorite, or I guess maybe
Member of the community.
what is your favorite
What is your favorite? Yeah.
non-organic member of the community?
What is your favorite member of the community that's not like a person?
Yes, non-living.
So Mr. Slopez 10 says the one CRT that squeezes the aspect ratio of the game and is basically unplayable. Yeah, you love that. Really like that one. We got Squirrel with Banana 1887 who said the controllers, the OEMs, fobs, Goomwaves, boxes, frame ones, especially the bongos.
Yes.
The controller player uses can tell you so much about them, and we've seen so many over the years, as well as some great content like Summit sketches. Yeah, that's true. There's those keyboard controllers. There's that really like messed up looking horrible controller with the really tall buttons. That one's terrifying.
Yeah.
If you've seen that, I really don't like it. You can read the next one, PP.
Oh, sure. And then we got Carlo. Oh boy, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your last name. Vakari Plus saying, Randall, that cheerful cloud has been going in loops for decades, throwing a spanner in the works for edge guards and recoveries alike since time immemorial. I mean,
That's
is how I feel. It is. I mean, despite him being on a timer, sometimes it just feels like he just shows up when he feels like it. And shout outs to Randall for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a really good answer. I'm surprised we didn't get like Shy Guys.
Not as
I guess
popular.
maybe Shy Guys are organic, whereas Randall's not really organic. Randall's like, water vapor, right? It's a cloud.
I guess.
Tongster.
Tongster 789 coming in with our final community voice answer saying,
yeah, go ahead.
The Mango Armada Evo 2013 where he took off that shirt and Prog just go shirts in the crowd really sticks out to me for some reason. So my answer is Mango shirt. Yeah, the shirt going in the crowd was good.
Wonder what happened to that shirt. I wonder if that guy kept it. Whoever caught it.
Probably. That's some good history right there.
That is some good history.
I wonder if they wash it. That's my question.
Never wash it.
Keep the mango funk alive.
Oh, I wish you didn't say that, but here we are.
Oh well, moving on.
Moving on. Well, some of us are moving on, but I'm not. Anyway, let's get our first caller on. Are we actually? Wait, sorry, producer. Wait, are we getting our first live caller, or are we doing the voicemail first?
Let's find out. I think we're probably taking the voicemail, but let's see. What are we doing?
Voicemail. All right. Okay, play that lovely voicemail. Let's all listen to it together. I can't hear anything.
Yo, what's going on? My tag is Temujin. I'm initially from San Diego, although I'm in Berkeley right now. And I was wondering who you guys felt had the most unique play style right now. There are a lot of top players, but there are also a lot of people like on Twitter and all sorts of other places that just, have a whole range of play styles. Who do you guys think is the most unique or the most interesting out of the whole bunch of Melee players?
Wow, great question. And I mean, Godspeed and good luck to you. Sounds like you're calling in from a war zone. But I mean, really pressing question that you just had to get off your chest.
Yeah.
So, I didn't quite catch your name. It sounded like Timothy or.
Yeah. Thank you to mysterious caller whose name started with T, I think.
It might not have even started with T.
You might be right.
And no, but I like this question. I gotta think about it. Khalid, what do you think? You have an answer?
I've sat here thinking about it, and honestly, as stupid as it sounds, it has to be Mango, right? Like the way that he plays the game is so sick, and his Falco in particular, with like he's so aggressive. Like so many other Falcos I'll play against. I've never played against Mango, but watching him play, I'll play against other Falcos. It's laser, 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 laser. Oh, here's an opening. But Mango's just like, he finds such unique ways to chain stun the hit stun from laser with another move, like laser shine grab, laser turn around up tilt. He just does so many unique and cool things, and his combo game is so sick too. I think it's Mango.
I think you're probably right. Like, and it's extra like the fact that I feel like all of Mango's characters, whenever he plays a character, I'm like, this character is really unique. Like his Fox, I think, still does things that I really don't see the other Foxes doing. I think his Fox is by far the best user of running shine. I remember I was playing him in a bunch of Sheik Fox friendlies because it was like at a summit and he needed to warm up for Plup. So he's like, hey, I know you have a Sheik, like play me with Sheik. And we're playing Sheik Fox, and he would he would dash dance. Like let's say he gets a knockdown and like his attack tray is coming up. Well, a lot of people will kind of like try to get up on top of where the tech is to be able to react to everything with like a dash grab or JC grab. And he would like dash dance and he'd kind of call out. So it's a little bit harder to react to tech in place. But on the flip side, if he sees me tech in one direction, he would like run, shine, short hop up air and get like 70%. And like that, and I was like kind of thinking, I was like, okay, first of all, nobody's doing this. And second of all, like there's kind of this weighted RPS thing going on where he's like, yeah, I'm willing to give up one option a little bit, but on the flip side, I'm punishing your other options way harder than I would otherwise. And I just don't think anyone else is really doing this sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, I think Mango's just kind of the right answer.
Yeah,
to be honest. But yeah, I mean, PP, maybe you have another take or.
I mean, I think Mango is going to be probably most people's answer to this, and I think he's a really good answer to this question. I think I don't know if I would need to like maybe like fully flesh it out if I really wanted to think about it, but I would at least want to give a very honorable mention to None for this question, because I feel like I think Mango and None share a lot of similarities in that I think they both kind of they'll pull from the meta, but they both really want to do things their own way. I think None also has a sense of what you're talking about too, where he'll go for certain coverage. If he thinks he's right, he gets a kill or he gets a lot of damage, and if he's wrong, maybe he just holds position, or maybe he gets to play another mix up. And I think there's a big similarity in Nunn's characters also being very unique. There's his innovation with his other characters. I mean, Nunn and I were doing some content that hasn't come out yet, but we were doing that the other day, a little crash course. And it was very surprising just to watch him play a character that didn't play so much, but it was just very fluid, just because the way Nunn sees everything and brings that together. So I think I at least I would just really like watching Nunn anyway. So maybe that's it's just full bias anyway. But again, I think Mango's a very good answer, and maybe he is just the best answer for the question. But I at least also think Nunn is in that conversation.
Dude, with Nunn, no, I fully agree that he's extremely unique. Like the reason I think he's not quite as good of an answer to me as Mango is just because I think that the other Falcons are closer to Nunn than like Falcos are to Mango or whatever, or Foxes are to Mango. But that being said, I mean, yeah, Nunn definitely like taught me a lot about. Man, I don't know. I remember playing Nunn back in 2014 or 2015, and he would like he would gentleman, and then he'd read he would like gentleman me, and then he'd read buffer roll away. And I was he would at low, like relatively low percent, like he would gentleman, not a percent where a gentleman knocks down. And I would buffer roll away, and he would read that with like with a knee outwards, catching the roll away. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting that you caught on to that as like a pattern that you're scouting for. Like how, like, and he was like, yeah, a lot of Foxes, a lot of Spacies do that after I gentleman, and they like buffer roll away. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting that that's a pattern that people have that you've kind of identified. And even like the way he thinks about the game, the way he talks about the game. Maybe I told this story a long time ago, but like I remember I was asking him for advice against. It was like at main stage. It was one of the main stages where I had to play a bunch of Foxes in a row. And I was fighting. I think it was actually Cactuar in bracket, and he was telling me after the set that like something he noticed about Cactuar was like he was like, oh, Cactuar. He was getting a lot of tournament winners, and like his movement off the ledge wasn't very clean. And he was like, usually when a Spacey, like when they're having a lot of tournament winners and they're like not that clean off the ledge, what that kind of does to their psychology is, obviously he didn't word it this way, like he said it in his Nunn way, but he was like, basically what he was saying was like, a lot of the time what happens is they really want to get back to center stage because they're like, oh, I'm not playing well off the ledge. So because I'm missing my ledge dashes or whatever, or my execution is not that clean off the ledge. They don't feel comfortable by the ledge. And so they will roll a lot more, or they'll do a lot of options where they just want to get back to center stage. And he's like, so I think you could have scouted rolls more, or I think you could have scouted for him to kind of be anxious to get back to center stage more. And, a lot of my friends in the community are people like, okay, let's say like KJH and people that are very technical, and like when I talk to them about or Spark, and I talk to these people about Melee, and they'll never say stuff like that. They'll never give me advice like that. They're never thinking about the game that way. So talking to Nunn about the way he looks at the game, it was just very different from what I'm used to with my kind of group of friends in the community. And I was like, oh, that's really smart, actually. Like it's very like psychology oriented. And I almost feel like it's a shame that Nunn 90% of the time when he's talking, he's like kind of memeing a little bit. So like I would love to get like the full Nunn playbook of like what he's thinking about and what he's looking for. Because I actually think he's got a lot of really like good stuff in there that people aren't thinking about. And I think it's really fascinating.
For sure.
Yeah. So anyway, no, I think Nunn's definitely a solid runner up. But yeah. Khalid, do you ever feel like, the way I think about like the top tiers in Melee, like sometimes I feel like as a Jigglypuff player, you have to be more, to a certain degree, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like, Jigglypuff's not like to me, not like a frame data character. So do you ever, I don't know, is this something that like you feel like just as an aside, like for example, I used to have the hardest time, and I think the community in general had the hardest time talking about, as an example, what is HBox doing better than the other Puffs? Because like, it's like the kind of thing where it's like, what is Jmook doing better than the other Sheiks? Well, I could tell you what Jmook's doing better than the other Sheiks, but it's, in contrast, it's not that easy to talk about what is like Hungrybox doing better than the other Puffs. Do you ever feel like this is something you have to think about a lot as a Puff player, or you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I've definitely thought about that many times. I guess I would start out by saying, to go back what you were saying about Nunn and him sort of catching up on the feelings of his opponent. That's like a great way to play. It's sort of like smelling the fear. Like there are definitely little things in the game when you're playing, you'll just recognize somebody starts to like, oh, I really want to get me out of this situation, and they'll start reverting back to their like initial primal understanding of the game, like roll is good, runaway is good, and they'll just get caught out for that instantly. And Nunn does an excellent job of that. And I feel when it comes to Hungrybox, he sort of has an interesting way of play of creating that fear in his opponent. He'll play really calm, really safe, really relaxed his first few stocks, and then suddenly the last stock he's on top of you, and you're like, oh my god, there's a rest situation that's about to happen. I need to escape this rest situation. And he'll go for something like a jump read, and it's over right at that moment. He'll create fear in his opponent, and then their opponent just cracks under the pressure most of the time.
Yeah, I think there's. While you were talking, actually, I wanted to bring up HBox too, because I was like, oh, I think there is something. I do think there is something unique about the way he approaches things. I mean, for example, when Zane was on, he was saying HBox is maybe the best player at changing up. When he's going for really defensive versus really aggressive, he's maybe the best at switching that up and doing both really well. Whereas people, stay more in their comfort zone. Maybe they switch around a little bit, or when they switch, it's more obvious or things like that. And HBox is really good about that. And when we had him on the program, he also said, you can influence people from far away, which is not something you usually think about with Puff, not having a projectile like we talked about earlier, right? So I think HBox, is also an interesting answer to this question that, it may be immediately obvious to everyone.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like, because visually speaking, like in terms of any given slice of time, it's not like he's like doing movement or whatever that like other Puffs aren't doing or what have you. But I think you're right. Like him as a player, he might be one of the most unique opponents too.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen Genghis Wan's Fox, it doesn't look like the other foxes.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is for sure. Yeah. Man. Anyway, yeah, really great question from our from the guy that called in. Yeah, that's fun to talk about. Thank you for thanks for the question and again, I guess we should just shout out one more time. We've got the Radio Melee voicemail is going to be 213-347-5242 for anybody who wants to ask us a question, but can't make it to the live broadcast, or might be in a weird time zone, might have work. I know West Coast, like for example, it's 3 p.m. right now. I'm sure a lot of people are working. So yeah, any given week, and make sure you're following GG Melee on Twitter, just so you can see ahead of time kind of who the guest is going to be for a given episode. And you can ask a question for a specific guest. But okay, we've got some more questions coming in from our live callers as we always do. So our next caller is going to be jumping in. We've got a repeat long time caller. And I did get to finally meet this person IRL at off season for the first time ever.
Nice.
And it is going to be Twitch is Web. Everyone loves Twitch is Web. Welcome back to the program. What do you got for us today?
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Your
Hey.
voice is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Your hair is beautiful.
Thank you.
I got a real simple question for everyone. I think there's multiple sufficient input from you guys here. Who do you believe wins the Jigglypuff versus Marth matchup, and why? Be specific.
Is this a contentious
Ooh.
issue? I didn't know.
Well, it's I think there typically leans one way. I think most people would say one certain character, but I think it's close enough to be worth discussing the intricacies of the matchup.
Well, it's changed over time for sure. Because I remember these days, I assume when you say one particular character, I assume you're thinking of Marth. I feel like more people these days would say Marth. When I first started playing Melee, more people would say Marth. This was like, because I started playing Melee in 2008, and, Mewtwo King was godlike, and obviously, Ken was, the best player was Ken, and then it was Mewtwo King, so it was like, okay. But then there was a large amount of time in the middle, like 2013, the whole Evo era, where, a lot of people, probably 90% of people, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I feel like in those days, people would very commonly say
Most
that
people were
they thought-
saying that.
Most people would say Puff.
Most people were saying that, yeah.
Most people were saying that. Mewtwo King
Yeah.
was definitely saying that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's an interesting question. Sort of super strong thoughts. Khalid, maybe you can start us off.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And what you're saying is definitely a good way to start it. When you think about what characters win what matchup, you have to think about the developments of the matchup throughout time. Like the tier list is always changing. We used to think Yoshi's trash, now he's amazing. And it's what you say is completely true. People used to think Puff won the matchup. Nowadays, most people would say Marth wins the matchup because Zayn is just dominating the best Puff in the game right now. When I think about matchups, I do take results into consideration sometimes, but most of the time, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to think about exactly what's going on, the potential between both of the characters and their ability to kill each other and survive. And this is such a difficult one. I've been doing nothing this past 2 weeks but grinding Puff-Marth. That's so funny that this question was asked. And because I have Kadoran in my region, who's not only the best player in San Diego, but the best player in SoCal right now.
Didn't you take a
Flamingo.
set off of him
Yes.
very recently?
Yes.
Something I wanted to bring up.
Thank you. Yeah. Less than a week ago, I took a set off him. I'm the first SoCal player that he's dropped a set to in over a year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But immediately after that, he 6-0'd me in grand finals, which I did see coming, and I was trying my hardest to prevent. He's very good at snapping back into form to put off his rocker. But in terms of the matchup, honestly, I think it's like 50-50. Like the more I play the matchup, the more I realize that there are a lot of things Marth has that just like kind of his dash dance is almost like a vortex that baits so many Jigglypuffs in, like, oh, I swear I have a hit here, but his dash back is just so good. He'll be able to dash outside of the range of Bear, grab the opponent, and then boom, pivot tipper. But if you're not playing into that sort of game, you're playing the air-based approach, he can't grab you if you're in the air for the most part. I mean, he can, but they're not going to. He can't grab you if you're on the top platform flying above. And if you really pick your timings and decisions right on when to go into his face, because that's where I think Jigglypuff really wins. Jigglypuff doesn't want to be at this spacing where only Sword's going to hit her, because she's going to lose at that spacing. And she also doesn't want to be like too far away, because she'll just get like it's hard for her to really get. She wants to be in Marth's face basically, because that's where the rests come from, all the rest setups come from, and she wants Marth in the corner and off stage and on the edge. And yeah, the more and more I play it, the more I'm realizing you don't need to play that game where Marth is going to hunt a grab for you. So I've been trying my best lately to understand the matchup more. And Puff does have a lot of things on Marth. Yeah, he has the grab that can grab her while she's crouching, But if you're able to beta grab like that, spot dodge beats it and you get a rest. And there's a lot of huge mix-ups going on. Like if you can read a Marth forward smash and you space it to where it's not a tipper, you could rest it on a shield for it. I really do think it's pretty much 50-50. And I also feel like the matchup is probably one of the less developed ones we have out of all the top tier matchups. Not to call out HBox or anything, but he's more focused on ultimate. He's not
And
really
Fox, probably.
He's not in his prime form, I would say, and a lot of other Jigglypuffs are stepping up as well. I think that we're going to see that matchup get a lot more development as the years go on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think I just wanted to call out one thing really quickly, Toph, before you go. I just wanted to say that I always think I thought this was interesting a few years ago, where I saw HBox start to bring spot dodge in a little bit as well against Marth, because I watched I'm a big fan of some of the developments from the Golden Age before Brawl came out. I always kind of I used to go back and revisit those and like look for ideas there and things like that. And there was a Puff back then, Zulu, that people don't really know about now, but Zulu did some spot dodge, and he did a lot of rolls against Marth, and I was like, oh, it's so weird. But it's like we don't see that now because I think it's still like okay. And I saw HBox starting to do that, and I was like, it's funny how these things cycle around. So I just wanted to bring that up really quickly.
Yeah, that's interesting. The whole dash grab thing always felt not as like, I word this like people look at it like it's like, oh, this is just the answer. Now you can grab the crouching puff. But like I always felt like there was like the counterplay was kind of underexplored or at least underutilized at the top level, like with like HBox or whatever. I mean, I know you can also literally wave dash under it. I don't know if that's as effective or as easy as spot dodging.
Hard timing.
Yeah, hard timing, right? So, but it's risky. I mean, dash grab's slower than JC grab. It's it should be, to me, like when I think about it logically, I'm like, this should be some sort of RPS type thing. And I like that you bring up like kind of the zones that you're supposed to be fighting Marth in, versus not, because I think a lot of matchups are kind of like that. Like when I think about a lot of matchups where like one character has a clear advantage in one way and the other character has a clear advantage in another way, like there's a lot of matchups I feel like where you can watch a set or even just a single game of it being played at the top level, and whoever's getting to play in the spots of the stage that are like better for them, like they're just gonna win. Like, I mean, the way Wizzy fights HBox is he full jumps a lot. And like, it's kind of like the opposite where I feel like when like or what you're talking about in the sense that like I feel like in Falcon Puff, like if you as like at least when I watch Wizzy fight HBox, a lot of the time it feels like he like kind of doesn't want to be grounded, and he plays the platforms and he actually jumps around a lot. And because obviously like it's like, well, if I'll like full jump, and then if I can get like a cheeky little like falling up air or knee or something, like I'll go for it. Otherwise I'll just like wave land on the platform and just kind of get out of there. And if HBox just kind of lets him play that game, then it's just like, oh, it's gonna be like a 2 or a 3 stock. Like there's it's just kind of a losing battle. A lot of matchups like that. I mean, like, if it's Falco Fox, and if the Fox is just doing some really simple like full jump playstyle, and if the Falco is actually choosing to engage with that in ways where it's just a favorable interaction for Fox is just going to win, and kind of vice versa. So yeah, I think there's a lot of matchups where it can look really bad, but the reason it looks bad is because like the two players keep falling into, I don't even know if I'm giving the best examples, but it's like the two examples keep falling into the sorts of engagements where one character is just better than the other in that type of engagement. And if you can avoid that, if you know what not to do or what not to play into, you can make a lot of hard matchups a lot easier, where you just don't give them the kind of things that they're looking for. That's a good way. That's honestly, that's a good way of thinking about a lot of matchups, I feel. And yeah, that's a great example. I'm really, really interested. Puff is definitely in an interesting spot, like you said, with HBox potentially focusing more on either Fox or Ultimate or running Coin Box or whatever the hell's going on, because it's like, it's the kind of thing where the Puff, like the people pushing the meta are going to be people like yourself or the CPU zeros or what have you of the world. But maybe that all converges eventually. So yeah, curious, excited to see what. I mean, even honestly, even when Zane plays HBox, right? Like, it's not like it's. Sometimes it looks pretty bad, but I mean, sometimes HBox is taking him to the limit. So and that's Zane at number one. That's number one in the world, Zane. So like, Zayn's definitely at his peak right now. He's definitely practicing super duper 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 hard. So who knows? I don't know. I don't think that's an unreasonable take at all.
Just to weigh in real quick, I
Yeah.
think Marth beats Puff pretty solidly.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have it backwards. I think Marth beats Puff pretty solidly, unless I said it the right way the first time.
No, you said
Ooh,
that.
wake up. Okay, good. Wake up. Wake up. So I just wanted my reasoning for that is basically it's not changed too much, but I am always curious about what Puffs are doing. I think Marth's dash grab on Puff is not really real, so I don't really like it. I think it is unfavorable, kind of like what you guys are talking about. But I think Marth can also grab Puff out of the air more reliably than has been shown so far. I think I've talked to some people that have labbed that and know that that's much more real and can do that. And I've seen players do that for quite a while now. So I think that's a reliable way of getting grabs, which is a reliable way of getting kills. So that's really important. So Marth doesn't get reversaled. I think Puff's main advantage is in edge guarding. I think Marth can't really edge guard Puff that well. He can probably edge guard her better than he is doing currently, but certainly not to the level Puff could probably edge guard Marth at, which probably sounds a little weird given how it can kind of be hard for her to get the FB. But I think she can go farther out and get him, whereas Marth can't really do that to Puff. But I think Marth can rack damage on Puff okay off of his grabs, where I think Puff can have a little bit harder time getting damage until she gets him like to knockdown percent. So I think Marth's getting more damage on average. I think the juggle is still okay for Marth. It's just like tedious, but like if you know your setups, it's not too bad, especially on like Yoshi's or smaller stages. And then of course, converting into a kill, I also think is easier for Marth for the other reasons that I mentioned. And then of course, if Puff ever goes high for whatever reason in neutral, he can just run in forward air, and then he has the dash back that we talked about. So I think it all kind of just works together. Marth has the mobility and the range and the damage and so on. So I think it works very well for him, basically.
I've always really liked your takes on how I like that you're always an up player, first of all, PP. Because I remember you were actually no, never mind. You used to go back and forth on Falco Puff. I remember this on Smashwords. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, you've gone back, but yeah, I like your takes on like Marth versus floaties and stuff, where you focus a lot on kind of the neutral game and who kind of can just like outpace the other in the nickel and dime interactions, because I do think that's really important. And dude, I have this whole take that back in the day when people talked about matchups, people talked more about the neutral, and to the detriment of talking about like, because I think back in the day I felt like I needed to remind people like, hey, rest exists, and if you get a rest, that just change, like that changes the way the matchup works. Like if you like punish game matters, and I feel like these days when people talk about matchups, punish game gets overemphasized to a little bit to the detriment of neutral. I don't know if that's my imagination, but
no, I would say that's probably fair.
It's interesting, but
I actually think some floaties are actually at an interesting place in this, because they cannot ignore neutral. In fact, they get to play it more.
That is true.
Often.
That is true.
I think there's a real advantage for a lot of floaties in the modern era in that way, where they get to have that balance kind of happen naturally, which is cool. I don't know if you feel that's true or not, Khalid.
I feel that's definitely true. I mean, my secondaries suck, and when I play them, I just get rolled this Fox and Falco. But it's 100% true. Like Puff gets hit away, she gets swatted away, and instantly you and your opponent both are reset to neutral. Jigglypuff's either going higher, finding her way back in, and you guys are
you get time to think about it.
Yeah, just fighting back again. And yeah, that getting time to think is such a huge thing about Jigglypuff. People don't understand too. Whenever I'm feeling like stressed in a game, or I feel like I'm on the back foot, or I'm starting to panic, I could just grab the ledge, float away, and just like breathe and focus on my breath. It's such a good way of just resetting the pace that not a lot of characters have the advantage or privilege to do.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. Yeah, people don't think about that sort of thing. Well, appreciate the question, Twitch's Web. If you want to, give any final thoughts or do some shout outs, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Great discussion, in my opinion, guys. Thank you very much. And I definitely want to give shout outs just to the three of you. I saw two of you at the off season, and That was pretty awesome. I really appreciate it. PP, I'll find you wherever you are.
I will
I'll
find
be
you. How
there.
do I find you first?
Come and find me, bro. Congratulations on the set win to Khalid. I'm a big Kadoran fan, but credit where credit's due. I saw that set. It's pretty sick.
Thank you.
And honestly, I want to play you too again. So
Hey, hit me up. I'm down.
we'll make it happen. Yeah. But yeah, shout outs to you guys and Radio Melee in general. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one, guys.
All right, and it looks like we have time for one more caller. We've got them lined up. Bringing him in now. It is Mr. Slopez. Hello, welcome to the program. What's your question for us today, and where are you calling in from, gamer? You cannot. I don't know if your
I don't
mic
hear
will
anything
be-
yet.
You're not muted.
Not
so
muted. Not on Discord.
Maybe you got to check your audio setting. Make sure your input source. I don't know.
I don't know. Isn't this what the
Oh,
mic
man.
check channel's for? We usually have a,
Yeah.
we have a whole mic check
Wow. this is
process. Okay.
awkward. Well, we know they're there because they unmuted, so it's they're
Oh,
and they're gone.
and they're gone.
Oh, this is
Technology.
what do we do? Oh, and they're back.
All right. There we go. Okay.
Being told he did pass the mic check. So
Yeah.
hello, Mr. Lopez. Oh,
Oh,
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Yeah,
yes,
we can hear you
can.
now.
Oh.
Beautiful.
all right.
That's great. Sorry about that. I don't know
That-
what happened. I didn't change anything, but anyway.
Huh.
Calling in from Central Florida. Good to finally talk to you all.
Okay.
have
And
you.
my thank you. My question is about North Carolina's most recent PR, and
Oh, boy.
I really like their format. It shows a tier list of players in addition to the top 10 players. So, what do you guys think of this idea? And I really personally love it because it's like a snapshot of the regular attendees during that period of time. So, not only do you get the best players, but you also see who was actually going to the tournaments during that time.
So is the top 10 still numbered and not in a tier, and then there's a tier after it, or is there the tier list that includes the top 10 but also other people? Can you explain this a little further so I can understand?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to bring it up to see the exact format, but it did have the top 10, and then below that there was a tier list. So it would list off just everybody below the top 10, and they would tier them.
Well, that's
And
kinda
I just thought that
cool.
was a great idea. Yeah, it was like honorable mentions, but really it just showed even more people than, maybe one or two extras, right?
Yeah, no, I like that because that's showing okay, well, I mean and I used to do PR work for North Carolina, and once we got around the 8 to 10 mark, I think Toph has talked about this too on here. Once you get
Yeah.
around that mark and lower, it becomes real difficult. It's confusing, but a tier list format is a good way to solve that. It's like, okay, well, we know people are roughly in this range and
Mhm.
roughly in this range, and so we'll put them and I like that too because especially if you have more active scenes or you're trying to get a more active scene, you can recognize people's efforts. You can say that, okay, you're in this tier now, or this is who you're amongst, and this is maybe who you're trying to get to. Maybe top 10's a little too far, but maybe these people in the tier 2 tiers below you can shoot for. And I think that's really cool. And I also think it helps for seeding outside of it. So I think it's just great in a lot of ways. So I love it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I always felt like, even on like the top 100 or whatever, I always felt like below a certain point, like let's say like above 50 to 100 in that range, it basically kind of almost should be a tier list anyway. Like if you've ever been anyone who's ever done ballots for the top 100, they kind of know that it's like, you really got to get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 right. But no one's thinking that hard about 78 versus 79 or whatever. Usually if you're doing the ballots, you kind of put them into a tier anyway, and then they aggregate them at the end and they average it out, and that's how you get your top 100. But that's kind of how I think most people think about rankings anyway. So, I mean, if it encourages, I don't know. I think for a lot of people that like start going to terms or whatever, they probably feel kind of represented or welcomed if they see their name or, on some kind of tier list thing. So, no, I mean, it's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, I mentioning that sort of reminds me of the San Diego Melee. We had a skill keeper that would it would basically be like an ELO system that we had that we wouldn't we anybody from the public could just like click on, and it sort of had like a ranking, and we would import the most recent local results to the skill keeper, and it would update automatically through the algorithm and just put people up or down. And I was not ranked in San Diego at the time, but it was really cool to just be able to click on that and just see like where I was and relative to all the people I knew and my friends, and see how I was able to like gauge myself and my skill among others.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you bringing that up is really interesting because, I am not an algorithm enthusiast for, doing the top 100 or whatever, but, for a local scene, that might actually be a great place for it for the reasons you said, right? It might make it more accessible to get in. You might say, okay, well, now I'm part of this thing. Now I'm part of this system automatically by going, this is where I am compared to all these other people. And, I can see my number change or for, I mean, for better or worse, I suppose, when I go to an event. And I can feel like I'm part of the ecosystem right away, and I can learn about all these other people, and then put faces to names at events, and that can be a good use for it. So I hadn't really thought about that till now. It's interesting. Don't know if there's any other thoughts about that, but yeah, I think I do like I really just like tier lists for things that are usually not characters, or if they are, they're funny tier lists, like which characters are the richest or whatever. Those tier
Mhm.
lists are more fun than the typical ones. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm glad we're expanding our use of tier lists. That's a good sign to me. But thank you, Mr. Slopez, for calling in. Fun question. Very interesting stuff. Any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Yeah, definitely. I did want to say like superlatives would also be amazing for a tier list. Like most likely
Oh.
to SD, something like that would be really fun.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
But yeah, some quick shout outs. The Slippy Boys is like a little Discord server me and a couple friends have. I love that server so much, and we just have a lot of fun and run our own little tournaments. So shout out to those guys. Mo runs the CFL tournaments down here, and he does just an amazing job with Smash the Scene. Jabe does that for on Monday nights as well, with Lucky Straws, and then Benny's also running some online tournaments on Tuesday nights. Shout out to those guys. Those guys that run tournaments. I've run a couple myself, and it's work. It's not great all the time. So shout out to those guys. But that's all. Thank you all for having me on.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Okay, that is the last of our callers for now, Khalid. So there's really only one more thing we could possibly ask from you here, aside from thumbnails after the show, and that is the community voice question. That's right, the question that only you can ask, that you were definitely thinking about this whole time and we are not helping you stall for it the last minute, right?
No.
So this is a question that you asked for the YouTube comments. It can be serious, like what's your favorite major? Do you have any local TOs you want to shout out? If you haven't gone to a tournament yet, why? It can be silly. We had Polish ask, who would Elijah Wood main in Melee? It really can just be whatever you want. This is not a high pressure tightrope situation. Maybe, it can be, it's just something you're curious about the community about. Maybe you can think, what would I want people to respond to? So maybe I could look at the comments. What are people thinking about, or what are they talking about? Do you want us to stall more also? We can do that.
No, I think it's okay. I guess my question would probably be do you okay, yeah, stall.
Okay. Yeah, so are there any community voice questions that you've really liked that you remember, Toph?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's a great question that you just asked me.
Okay, well, oh gosh, I'm making it worse.
I think it's something about something we love. We love questions. We get a lot of questions about, characters and matchups, character placements. We get a lot of questions about. Didn't Rishi ask a question? Rishi asked something really funny. I remember.
What did he ask?
Man.
I know the ones I was thinking about ones that I liked, and those are often prediction questions, because they'll be like, okay, well, who do you think's gonna like do well? Like, for example,
Oh yeah,
Big House
who's
is
gonna
coming up? Like
who's gonna do
win,
well? Who's gonna
or-
get number one on the rankings at the end of the year? I think that was
Yeah.
one that I asked one time.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
like asking those types of questions because you can't.
People have to justify. You
have
can't really be wrong. You're
y-
just doing a prediction. Well, you can.
But
be
then
wrong.
you can go back and be like, "Ooh, well, hey, I thought I said I called it, but turns out I didn't," right? Because then
Yeah.
you locked in, right? Because you can always kind of say, "Oh, nope, I knew it for sure," but then you go back and you don't, and you just you're
Mhm.
looking silly. So I kind of always like that. But you look a little more certain there, Khalid. Did you end up figuring something out?
Yes. Thank you for stalling. I did
You're
think of a
welcome.
question. So I guess I will start my question off with a statement. I find that when I'm playing Melee, I play my best when everything else in my life is going well and I'm relaxed.
Mm.
What sort of outside factors, uh, whether it be music, how much sleep you got, what you ate, what sort of outside factors do you find most influence your gameplay, and to
Ooh.
what extent?
We haven't gotten that one before.
I haven't gotten anything even related to that. I like that. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think the closest we had was like, what do you like doing outside of Melee? Might be the closest, but it's pretty.
Yeah, but
pretty
that's
related.
this sounds more like what's the word? This is like out of game rituals and stuff like that almost. I mean, some people like to listen to music. Some people, some of the top players have very elaborate
Yeah.
ways of kind of ensuring that they play best at whatever tournament they're at. So this is a pretty interesting one. But I mean, I think it goes all the way down to at the local level. I mean, I remember, as an example, I always bring this up because I just thought it was really fascinating. I played Siglemic in tournament at a local, esteemed
cool.
Super Mario 64
That's so
speedrunner.
cool.
And he was the first person I ever met that used the Wizrobe audio splitter setup to get audio in his ears, game audio in his ears for the tournament set in his headset. Back then, I didn't know you could even do that. This was before Wizzy was doing it. This was like 2014 or something. So, and that was at a local. So, I'm sure people out there have all kinds of kind of takes on this. So that's a pretty good one.
Yeah,
and that's for everybody listening on YouTube. Leave a comment. Of course, you know the drill. CV and the best answers will get picked for next week's episode. But with that being said, I mean, I think that's that about wraps it up for this week of Radio Melee. Thank you again for joining us, Khalid. Best of luck. I guess we should, before we end, do you have any tournaments lined up or anything? What are kind of your plans for the rest of the year? Where can the people see you at?
In terms of locals, you could catch me at almost every single San Diego Melee local. I'm always here supporting the scene, doing the best that I can. In terms of majors, I will be going to Big House, of course, and that's where you're going to find me at most recently. And probably after that, the next big major would probably be Genesis.
Got it.
Assuming it gets announced, I'm pretty sure it will.
Well, they're tweeting eyes emojis, so
yeah,
there you go.
We see them.
All right. Well. Yeah, everyone be sure to catch, I mean, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more Khalid in the, coming tournaments and stuff like that. So yeah, be on the lookout. And with that being said, again, thank you for joining us. And PP, thanks for co-hosting as always. This has been Radio Melee yet another week. See you next Tuesday, and we are signing out.
Peace.